Welcome to the Making of You podcast. We have tons of talented friends in entertainment, media, and advertising, and this is our chance to sit down with them and hear their stories. My name is Ryan Huffman. I'm the founder and owner of Huffman Creative, a production company based in Los Angeles. And today I have my good friend Marissa Bennett with me. She is a very successful entrepreneur, CEO of her own creative studio. They started off with working with a lot of photographers and then photo retouching and have evolved into what it is today. So it means a lot to have you here, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So to kind of kick things off, would love to just kind of take it back a little bit and kind of hear maybe a little bit of your origin story. Like, how did you get started in the creative space, and what were kind of some of your first steps into this industry?
I literally ran into the love of my life at a bar at 3 a.m. in the West Village, employees only. This sweet man just kind of, swept me off my feet. One thing led to another, and within 2 years, we're married. Both my parents are entrepreneurs. My mom's a Mexican immigrant, entrepreneur, ran her own business. My father as well. So I couldn't help just watching my husband do what he was doing and see just all of the brilliance. He's just such a master retoucher by trade. Just see what he was doing, the caliber at which he was doing it, the connections that he had, the knowledge that he had, and it was just him and one other person. I think that I couldn't help but think hey, babe, there's got to be a way to scale this. And so I said, I'm just going to join for 1 year and maybe do a little, you never done any sales and marketing. It was kind of just coasting off of
And it's his own relationships or whatever is showing up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought I'll just see if there's something there. I can help a little bit. And yeah, it was 11 years later, I guess here I am.
Amazing. How exciting. So when you first met your husband, was he a photographer? Was he a retoucher? What was his main background at the time?
Retoucher. That's what he is by trade. Granted, he could sculpt you, draw you, paint. He's one of those annoying people that could pick up a new media, so he's just a pure artist. Started off with illustration. Then I'll be dating him, but it was the pre-Photoshop machine. I picture some Willy Wonka-sized machine the size of this room. And then, he worked on that and then Photoshop. And so that's always been his tool. And
when you made that decision to I guess, try it out for a year, what were those first steps? What did that look like? Because if you weren't familiar with the space and you also are meeting him, this started after you guys were married when you started helping him?
Yeah, I was. Okay. So we've been together for 3 years at that point.
And then that's when you were like, I think I can help you build this.
Yeah, I just couldn't help. I'm overhearing so much, we're in the same space or, I'm just showing up and seeing what he's doing, asking questions, poking around. And then I heard him say a friend of his from David's Bridal wanted him to help redo a catalog. And it was something 1,000 images or something like that.
It's crazy.
In 6 weeks or something. And Peter's gut reaction, or his knee-jerk reaction, was just no. I do covers of magazines or a story, 12 images, a billboard. And I don't know, my background with my mom and my dad was just, if there's a business problem that you could solve, see if you can solve it. Don't turn business away, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I said, are you sure, babe? There's no way.
I'm sure we can figure it out.
And that's kind of one thing led to another. I was like, I think there's might be a there. Plus, I could see the print and digital was really kind of collapsing in on itself. And you can kind of see the writing on the wall of where retouching was going. AI wasn't there yet, but everything was just getting, I don't know, I felt like retouching in general as a trade was becoming almost like a race to the bottom, it felt like.
More images for less.
More
basically.
images for less.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a commodity. I was like, we got to be able to get in where we fit in and see, I'll just poke around and see if there's a there.
So was that one project that your first step into this world? If you may, what was that process like? Just to figure something out for the first time, and that's a lot of deliverables.
It was, it's always the same, honestly, solving problems. What's the first thing? Or how many images? How many retouches do we need? Who are the greatest retouchers we know? Who do you already approve of? Because Peter's got this wildly high bar. It's almost like I think if I knew ahead of time how hard it would be or what I was building, there's no way I would have even tried. But since I didn't know, I'm like, all right, so just what's the first set of issues? Okay, we got to find the talent. What's the second set of issues? We've got this time frame. All right, how long is it taking to do one image? How long would it take to do this? Problem solving step at a time. Of course, we made no money, right? Because we're using all New York retouchers, maybe broke even. But the oohing and the eyeing from the client, which is something that you don't necessarily get in print when you're doing a magazine cover, like it's always like just good enough to go to print, but you could go 10 more rounds if they had more time. This wasn't that. This was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like the colors are the same, the consistency amongst the SKUs. There was like so much praise that's when I started poking around to see like, is there a problem in the industry of doing this like editorial level quality at scale? Because you got to be all the places now. And then as more platforms and things came up, lo and behold, there was definitely that was the problem.
And around that time, not time period, but around that time though, like that was still when the early cusp of like social media, and while now images and video are in 80 places, like that also was kind of when that was starting to ramp up. And yeah, and even like from print, I mean, things are still in print, but there's so many other places, and as things have evolved, the quantity but also high level of quality is still expected.
Exactly. And then the more channels, is just different. Then we were just trying to get beautiful, consistent assets for an online website. It's wedding dresses. You want to make sure if you're buying $1,000 dress or whatever you're buying, or that off an internet, that the color's correct, it's true and stuff. Now it's all the different channels, it's all the different places, and you want to make sure that it's not frayed, because sometimes it can get frayed, or you have freelancers in-house, juniors, like all sorts of stuff, because it's just the content beast is relentless. So everybody's doing what they can to be all the places. Having somebody that's paying attention to make sure that it's consistent and the brand identity is retained, I think is still a pain point that people are still kind of trying to figure out.
So when you were just getting started, like obviously, Peter, I should probably say his name. I imagine that there was probably that growing pain of he was only one person, and then you started like facilitating a bunch of artists, I'm assuming, right? Is that kind of what happened?
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened. And then also needing to have extension teams. So abroad, and I think any agency is probably used to people hitting them up from all over the world saying we can help you with post-production, because it's a pretty low barrier to entry. So it was doing a lot of tests. It was flying around the globe, meeting with teams and finding people that we thought would be able to see the vision that we had, which is we want a true partner. It's not like a vendor. It's an extension of our team. We want to be able to train them, Peter to be able to personally train them. And so that was a big piece of it too, which took a while. It took a few years to like crack that nut, to make sure that when you truly are sending something to somebody, expecting them to work on it overnight, when you wake up, that you're going to get what you thought you were going to get. And they're all the way across the world. They could be putting different people on it. They tell you yes, 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 but you don't have that sight. To find a real partner is not easy.
Yeah. I remember when we, or one of the first times that we met or spoke, I remember you sharing that. And I think that it's such a competitive edge in the sense of working with teams around the world. Having a partner and someone you can rely on, especially on large quantities like that, is so important. And I haven't really ever heard of someone that did it the way you did. So I think that is awesome. And when you build those relationships, I mean, it seemed like it helped you guys succeed over and over again.
My experience in business has been that it's about relationships and trusting people, finding the right people, of course, vetting, a ton of due diligence. And then at the end of the day, it's finding that person that's kind of like me, like you. When you sign your name on the dotted line, like you're going to get it done, you're going to deliver. And those people exist, they also feel the same way. And they also treat their people the way you treat your people and stuff. It just takes time and effort to find those people, because it's real easy to just go through a bunch of vendors because no one meets your bar, but to not take the time to actually build a relationship and build team. Like we do like Diwali stuff online with our teams, and we know when they're having babies, and they know when we're having babies, and Peter's gone and know their kids and stuff like that. So like it's not a vendor, it's an extension of our team.
And I love that. We also say that here of like, you hire good people and then ultimately build good relationships with your team, because it breeds better work, it builds better products, and also just better time and better experience.
Yeah, exactly. This is your life. This is my one wild life as far as I know. Like I'd like it to not be hellish.
Exactly. In the growth of your business, what were some of the things? Obviously, you learned this from your parents being entrepreneurs. But did you ever have a moment where you were like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing this, or like I learned this from my parents, and now is my time to put it into the work?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I ever connected the parents' dots really until like more recently. Because when people ask me questions like that you're asking me, I'm like, why did I? Like, that is weird. Like, why would I say to my husband, like, let me join for a year? I think it's just because I'd always been around entrepreneurs and then I just didn't realize I am an entrepreneur. Like, I just am. Even when I was an employee, I always had my owner hat on. I couldn't help but being like, I noticed this, this, and that. Could we do X, Y, Z? I just couldn't help it. So I don't know that I ever realized it at the time. But I think your question is what, like, when did I realize like I'm doing?
Yeah, was there like a moment maybe in your experience where like whether it was like with a client or on a project or even just running a company, like when you were like, oh my gosh, like this, I'm doing something that I saw my parents do or I learned through them?
I think definitely going on site to visit teams. That reminded me of like my dad had a wholesale clothing company, and he started off selling T-shirts at like or Willie Nelson concerts, or that's the lore in our family, and ended up having like a wholesale clothing catalog company. So I grew up with him like in the rag district in New York and in meetings or going to factories in Alabama. And my mom, she sold like Mexican folk art and T-shirts. That's how she met my dad at a T-shirt company in San Antonio. So they had a store at the airport, the Riverwalk. So I grew up with her going into Oaxaca and going up into the mountains. And, sometimes it'd take multiple years to find that one artist that would let us even go there because to find this particular type of craft and bring it back. Being on site and seeing, building teams like that, international teams, that felt like, oh, wow, feels very natural to me. And the world seems very small to me, too, in that sense. Like it always felt very small because of them. The moment I was like, oh, my gosh, I'm doing it, I would say would be with Sephora, who came to us during COVID. For something had happened with their, I'm not sure the details. What I know about was that I was tasked within like 2 months to roll out an entire international production team for their high volume content. So copywriting, design, and I just felt the immense responsibility. Like this stuff has to go live in January and it's November and I've got to build this team and it's perfection. Like the business I'm in is perfection. It's like the period has to be right.
Yeah, exactly.
like every image has to be right. And so I just remember being like, holy shit, like how am I going to pull this off? And then as the creative started getting approved, I'd be like, we're doing it. Just being so proud of the team, just beyond proud of the team.
I love that. In retouching and even in the world that we do, it's like if your job is to make something look better, like it needs to look perfect when it's done. Because if not, it's a little it's a little silly if not. So
they didn't hire you to do like to get it 99%, and then they're still having to do quality control. And then they might as well look at all of it. Then they got to look at all the creative. Like one little mistake, like just phrase the trust. It's a zero mistake kind of game that we're in. So it makes the stakes feel a little higher when you're building the machine.
So you touched on something that we talk about a lot on this podcast, which is moments where people were presented, with like an opportunity where they saw like a door, and there sometimes more often than not, people are like, well, I haven't done this or I haven't done it exactly like this, but I can figure it out. And people rise to the occasion, and that's what, breeds all these where we are today. And that sounds like that was a big stepping stone for you as a business.
Totally. It was like, and have we done this exact thing? No. But have we built teams with rounds, with creative, with files? And, yes, we do that. Do we know what beautiful is? Yes. Do we know how to build teams? Yes. So I was like, all right, that's it. Like, that's enough. Like, just trust yourself. I don't know that I knew, like I was telling myself to trust myself. It's just, I saw the vision. I was like, this is totally doable. I'll figure this out. Like this is figure outable, basically.
And those moments are what, you look back, and even it's so funny, COVID being like 5 years ago, there's like those little like moments in your career and as a business where you're like, dang, at the time I didn't realize it, but now looking back, how big of a moment that was to figuring those things out. So after you did that project, like what did that door open to other types of projects like that, or what was the next steps for the company?
Yeah, I think it was really being able to offer more solutions to brands, like being more end-to-end, not just post-production or not just retouching. We can offer copywriting, we can offer design, we could just offer more services. And I think brands really finding that like really refreshing to have like more of a one-stop shop, and also being able to just plug into their in-house teams wherever they needed that like extra capacity. And that's something I think ultimately that's what we're about. is I almost feel like the fixer. It's like, where is that creative production pipeline pinch point? And then what can we build that's super tailored to the way that brand works? Because they all have their own variables and the way they work, and to allow us to be like a seamless extension of their team. And so I think what that enabled us to do was to just offer more, which was nice because people are like, oh, you're crushing it here. It'd be a dream if you could crush it here too. And to be able to say, yeah, we got you there. We got you there. That was really fun. And having more in your hands, you can parallel path things. You can make things, find efficiencies.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So with finding these efficiencies and growing, your not only your experience, but also maybe your team as well. Like, what are the next steps as a business from there evolve into? Obviously doing more than just retouching, but it has also kind of evolved into other things as well, from photo shoots and production, right?
It's like, what were the next steps, or what the team looked like?
Yeah, well, I guess that was a long question. I guess, yeah, what did the team evolve into? And then like maybe we can talk about what you're doing now, but let's talk about the team evolving from there.
Yeah, I mean, the team evolves into, every element like that a typical agency has. Let's say, like, you have to have creative directors, art directors, you have to have editorial leads, you have to have content strategists. So it was just needing to find more and more talent. But we're also very, let's say, lean, because we do build these tailored teams for brands. So, and we don't really work in onesies and twosies. We work long term. I feel like almost all of our clients are long term, multi-years. So it takes a few projects, a few months to build the machine, and then we'll build that tailored team for them. So it's not like we're sitting around with, 20 extra art directors, that I need to keep working. We're building for brands.
Awesome. Yeah. So you have like a little bit longer of almost like a pipeline where you can build and, assemble these teams more than just like they're on for like a week and then they're gone. It sounds like a lot longer of a pipeline.
Exactly. And we can do those smaller ones, but usually those I call them, they're trust me projects. And that's when I'm just proving to them that I'm not full of it and that we can do what we say. And then, of course, we assemble from our own team and we knock out the trust me project. And then we come back and say, this is what we're seeing. This is where we think we could provide value. Here's a couple different ways we could configure it. What works for you? And then we go from there.
So one like common theme that I think I've gathered so far is like, I think you've done a really good job at finding ways to provide value to the people that you work with. And it sounds like in doing that, wouldn't you say that's what has expanded your capabilities over since you started the company?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's just the name of the game, is just saying yes to something you could knock out of the park. And then once they know that you're the problem solver, they'll come back to you and say, could you also help with this? And
help us solve more problems.
Help us solve more problems. And I get it, because I'm the same way. When I find anybody like that, whether it's a vendor or any solution as a CEO, I'm going to go back to the person that is just like not a headache, gets what I'm saying quickly, asks smart questions and comes back with a solution, and is adaptable. I would say that's another thing, like, that will be agile with me and not, say, this is how we work and we can't work outside of that. That will kind of meet me where I'm at. And when I find those folks, I get it. Like, you want to go back to them. It's easier.
Because you know how they work, the whole thing. It's just much easier. Again, going back on the relationships thing too, like you talked about. As of more recently, the last couple of years, now you've tiptoed into production a little bit. So now you're doing everything. What has that experience been like, learning the production side of things?
I will say it's very, very fun. And maybe it goes back to like my theater kid days. There's something very fun about being on set or working really hard towards this actual chunk of time to execute a specific thing, and to end with, champagne toast and clapping and a wrap party and being part of that. So for me, on a personal level, it's very fun, not just being, behind my desk creating and managing and building, but being like boots on the ground. Now I'm a little less boots on the ground. I've got my team and they crush it. But it's really fun. I love that. I love getting to see the creative come to life. That's so fun. In general, that's why I love this business, actually. If I actually think about it, it's a combination of loving to solve problems and loving creative people and loving watching them like slot them into that spot where they can just rock out and be great at what they do. And if you have a process, then you can slot creatives in. And I love watching them create, and I love a final deliverable. You know, it's nice to have a thing that you can say, that's beautiful.
Some of you can look at this tangible. Well, I love it. I love it. And I honestly, I would say that your experience and knowledge of post-production and even what's possible in post probably really puts you forward in how to communicate in production.
Oh, for sure. And that's why we always wanted to do that, because we'd always been the ones that just been receiving.
And you can avoid some of those problems.
Like, how many times have you been there being like, oh man, if only they had X, Y, Z, if only they'd put the plates in an organized plates folder, if only they'd had a file naming convention that was logical, or whatever the things are. So that's been really fun, is being able to optimize out of the gate. And then, everybody says, we'll do it in post, You're running out of time on set. And to actually be able to be a strategic thought partner that's like, this is what makes sense to do in post, and this is what
we should do
take
now.
The time to know that that's the right call, and to be able to make that call on set is really nice. It's also really nice to get confirmation from the client in real time. Like, we'll retouch live on set and be like, this is how we want, this model, the level of, for her skin or hair, this and that. So we come out one step ahead of the game versus having all those alignment rounds. So we're like already
going in.
We're already going in. So there's like, all that stuff is really fun.
Yeah. We there's a director we used to work with kind of earlier in the company's career founding, and like he was an extreme VFX whiz. So after working with him for a while, we just learned to be able to say like what we can fix, what we can't, and it was one of those like training things. But now knowing VFX, similar to like retouching or anything else in post, it's so helpful. So especially on those split decisions on set, you know what to do and how to do it.
And you feel confident you're making the right call, which is so nice, versus kind of like kicking it downstream.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of touched on it a few minutes ago, but the creative problem solving, is one of like your favorite things. Is that kind of what you maybe draw to why you also have loved entrepreneurship, and why this is like a perfect, this has been a perfect career for you in that sense?
Yes. It's a hard yes. Yeah, I didn't realize it, that I was an entrepreneur. I just kind of stumbled into it, but it makes total sense. Like anything I've ever done, I've always kind of wanted to really get in there and get under the hood and figure out, is there a better way? Like optimize something. Like I've always wanted to like optimize things or get to the root of the problem. So that's literally what you do all day as a CEO. I also get bored very easily, and I'm not good at doing the same,
the same thing over and over.
My nightmare is just being behind a spreadsheet and like doing detail work and making sure I didn't make a single mistake, or doing the same thing every day. That's not where I'm going to shine. So being a CEO is great. Every day is totally different, and all you're doing all day long is problem solving.
Mm-hmm. And learning. I mean, I feel like learning, I feel like that's one of the things I always try to challenge myself on, is like, if I'm not learning something new, then I do feel kind of like what you just said, like stagnant or in too much of a routine. I like to be challenging myself. And then Exhibit A, like you talking about going into, like now you're doing full on production, and you started off with only doing retouching, and that came from you learning along the way.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's the same thing. In my creative problem solving, it's the learning part that's the part. Like you want to know more. Like how, why, how, it's just the curiosity piece. So yeah, I think that's what makes it super fun, is you're always learning. You'll forever be learning. So I can't imagine ever getting bored. I do sometimes wonder about my like my cortisol levels. Jesus, like there are definitely days I'm like, this is exhausting,
Yeah.
But luckily you have enough of those little punctuations of like beautiful things that you can like.
There's those moments in entrepreneurship where you're just like, oh gosh, okay, here we go. I just gotta go.
I'm like, I feel like I should be like finger painting with 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I could do that for a living.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll be the art teacher. Like in my mind, that would be easier, but I'm sure that would be just as hard or harder. But those moments when you have these fantasies of what you could be doing, that's easier. But that's all fantasies. I'm sure we all have them.
Yeah. So I also remember that when we spoke together with Peter, I remember you talked about like how you guys were a really good team. What is that like working with your spouse?
It's interesting that I said that. I do think we're a really good team. I do. But I will say it took time. Like we had like a couples therapist like on the company's, like it was a line item, budget item. So 3 times a month for like years. And it was mostly just talking about business. Like, how did we show up in that meeting? Like, you know, what's your role? What's my role? It was a lot of figuring out like how can we make sure, or for me, the reason I wanted to invest so heavily in basically a coach. I'm not really a therapist, it was like a coach. I didn't want it to be like a uncomfortable work environment for the people around us. I know, like there's mom and dad bickering or something like that, or just that tension that could get awkward when people know each other so well. So I was just trying to figure out like, how do we navigate this? And I mean, luckily it's not as hard because it's such a clear delineation. Like he's an artist, pure artist, very process minded. I mean, that's the Swede in him who's very like, tuk, tuk, tuk. And he's an entrepreneur. I mean, he started his own company. So I don't mean to like downplay that, but I don't question his creative eye or any of his, he always will win in that lane. Like I defer to Peter, and it took a while, and hats off to him, right? To like relinquish, like to truly say, like he was the first person to say it, like you can't have two like leaders, like two people making the final call. And so we worked really hard to where we could get to a place that he would say, that's Marissa's call. And if we needed to like duke it out and go to the mat, we could do it, behind the scenes. So now it's like, I mean, that was like the first probably 4 years was us figuring out just, how to do it. How do you do it? How do you keep out the eye rolling or the things that you could do with I'm proud, but the things you could do when you're frustrated with somebody that you live
your spouse or something. Yeah, for sure. And then finding that separation too, I think is also, it's healthy to, I love the way that you put it as a coach, like to for you guys both to be able to learn how to work well with each other. And, even growing a business, we're all still learning, in a relationship. So I think it's really cool that you did that. I mean, I found that sometimes even my own running a business and things, like having a coach or a mentor or someone to help you through those things is a really good way to do it. And I haven't heard of someone that did it like that. So I think it's great.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a huge fan of coaches or anybody that can help you. You can't see the spinach on your own teeth is something I always say. So, and I don't want to walk around with spinach. So like, help me see. Like, I definitely want to know. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely go to all the coaches. It's the best. It's the best. And it's been really helpful. Peter and I hope our employees would say like, we're getting better every day, basically. We're getting better every day.
Yeah.
And we're a good team. And I think that comes across, I hope, to our clients, they know that like, I really respect what the foundations of what, like it was Peter's portfolio and time and many, many, many years. So like, we both really care, I guess. You know what I mean? Like we're not gonna let something out of the shop that that Peter doesn't approve of, basically.
I think that's also great that you guys both have, as you said, like your own, he is an artist and you have the CEO business mindset. And while he did start the company, I think the fact you guys both have your own like lanes also, yields a better result and I think experience for both of you.
I don't think it'd be possible any other way. If he was also like wanted to get involved in, HR and finance and everything to such a deep degree, it'd be a lot more challenging. And we had to learn a lot, like with the coaching, it's a lot of self-reflection, it's a lot of having to hear how somebody else felt and learning how to not be defensive, in that meeting when you said X, I felt Y. And I'd be like, oh, so you're saying you felt X when I said Y. You have to validate and then be like, I see where you're coming from. I'm going to work on that next week. And then coming back and saying, how did it go this last week? Was it better? It was better. And that just feels so good. Always in any relationship, no one's looking for perfection, but to know the other person's trying, it's like all you can really ask. And so I think that's been the best part is we both know that we want View to work and we're trying. We don't have kids. So I kind of feel like it's probably what parenting is. I don't know, right? Imagine that. Parenting's very similar.
Yeah. I'm sure that your own styles of communicating with each other also bleeds into, how you also talk to other people on your team and how you listen to others and work with others. I'm sure you've learned a lot of that in the process too.
I'm sure the team's like, oh great, now what new tool are we gonna like practice in the company? Yeah. Everybody now, all hands, we're doing active listening.
That's so funny. So to kind of go back a little bit into the company and the direction, I'd love to hear about a little bit of what you're working on right now. And maybe if you're allowed to share just like some of the production and stuff that you're learning and the exciting things that are going on.
Yeah, I mean, we're on to our like fourth or fifth, I don't know, shoot with Laneige, which has been really fun. Absolutely just feel so grateful that we found this like dream client and that they're organized, they're respectful, they have a really fun vision, they have an exciting vision that they, want to partner with to bring it to life. So that has been really fun. They come over from Korea, which is, I mean, there's some parts that are hard for them and us, I'm sure, having to like do 9 p.m. calls and things like that. But that's been really fun. And, starting off with stills and then adding film and just adding more and more and kind of building together has been really fun. And I'm getting the sense and that we're hitting that spot, right, where they're like, no, that they can count on us to deliver and that we can build together something really cool together.
And are these are the projects that you're doing, is it video, photo, both?
Yeah, it's both. So film and stills, almost always both, because you need all the assets for all the things. And a lot of brands are getting their, all the shots that they need for everything, trying to do it all at once. So you've got your stuff you're going to need for like Sephora or Ulta and, your basics. And then you're also going to need stuff for social and for, your on-site and everything. So we're finding that people are investing and just getting it as much as they can out of a shoot, basically.
You kind of look forward in the future, like what does the future look like for you in terms of expansion and things ahead?
Yeah, I mean, this past 2 years, I've just decided, or we've decided, I don't really like using because it's been a collective decision. We all sit around, looking at the state of affairs and where things are going with AI and stuff like that. And we kind of landed on, like, we've always been great in beauty. We've had deep roots in beauty and fashion and home goods, like basically luxury kind of items, but really beauty and fashion. And so just tripling down on beauty. I think it's a space that we're strong in terms of like beauty retouching and retouching skin really naturally. And I also just feel like AI is not gonna, I don't think any beauty brand would ever want their product showcased on an AI model. So that kind of led us there. And then it turns out I just love the industry. I'm going to like these beauty events like Beauty Matter or, Business of Fashion is a beauty event in Napa. The people that are throwing these, industry events are so passionate about what they're doing. The people you're meeting are so passionate. There's something about this space where people are more collaborative than I ever kind of would have guessed or had maybe experienced. I don't want to disparage any other industry. It's very collaborative and it's very fun and people are very passionate about what they're making. Plus, those wellness and beauty is kind of coming together. I personally am like a little wellness health tracker geek, like a biohacker. So I find it also like very interesting. And people like love working on beauty. It's so easy to find great talent because who doesn't want to, I mean, not who doesn't, but a lot of the women that I hire, not to be like put a gender to it, but a lot of people who I hire are attracted to the beauty industry are women and they're very excited about it. And the attrition's really low. Everybody wants to just keep growing View and growing with View, which I feel very like beyond honored.
That's amazing. We've been really lucky to actually do a couple of beauty campaigns over the last year and a half. And very much what you said, like knock on wood, have loved, every client, every experience, the people involved in the project. It's just a little bit different than like, I don't know, a clothing brand or like, I don't know, it's like a product. Like it's the beauty side of it, I think it's really fun. And it's, as you said, like it's beauty is about making someone feel more empowered and comfortable in their own skin. So I think the messaging behind it and everything too is just like, I don't know, it kind of bleeds what you said, like this like really wonderful environment.
Yeah, right. And it's true. And like the ship that beauty has taken, and I think Gen Z has a lot. Like they should be applauded for the direction I think they are moving the beauty industry in general. But it really is more about feeling beautiful as you are, period, not not looking a certain way or not covering up, or even the anti-aging. It's kind of changing into just feeling really great from the inside out and feeling beautiful, whatever that means for you. So that's been really, really fun to see, because, for a while there, especially if you think about Peter and his history, have been retouching, in the 90s and stuff. It was a very specific look, and it was, a very tight, narrow window of what beauty was. And so this is a super fun time. You don't have to have that existential crisis as much anymore of like, what am I pushing out into the world,
Yeah. What if that's such a fun way to look at it. I love that. And also, as like looking in the future, I feel like what you're doing as a company and then the industry that you're touching too is like very like empowering and fulfilling, I think, too.
Super fulfilling. And all these founders, I love all the founder stories. I love how passionate they are about their products. A lot of, they started them. I mean, that's entrepreneur to entrepreneur. I love that. They couldn't help it. This product needed to exist, and they're so passionate about it. So that's really fun too, is figuring out how to tell their story, and to be like honored to be part of that, to be able to help. It feels nice. And now to finally have like some real experience and to be able to be like, oh,
I know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
I got you.
I love that. If you were to look back, like what is one of the most valuable things you've learned growing a business that you wish the younger you maybe knew?
About growing a business.
Or your career, just one of the things that you've learned.
That's such a good question. I want to like think about it.
Yeah, you can think about it.
I think that a couple of things. One would be like, if I could go back in time and just like whisper into my ear, I would say, know your value. Like, even when I was, my 20s, 30s, working for other people, now that I've hired so many people and evaluated people and seen them, I think I would have told myself, like, just trust yourself. Like, you're a really hard worker and you deliver, and you're a net positive like asset to a team. Like, you don't need to prove yourself so much or justify yourself so much. Just do you. And be part of the team and support the team and just trust that. I think I wish I would have known that. I think there was a little bit of like hustling, just, like kind of this relentless like perfectionism, hustling, maybe a little proving, a little justifying kind of happening, maybe in my earlier career, that I wish I could go back and be like, it's okay.
You got this.
You got this. Maybe that's what I learned. And then in that too, like being able to not feeling so emotional about having conversations about money. That was a struggle for me. For what I think we all have our money things, whether we admit it or not. Like we all have whether we have a scarcity mindset or whatever our personal little brew of growing up was, that, it nets out, and we all have some little adorable hangups around money. And I think mine showed up in this like scarcity mindset or not wanting to ask for too much. So I would say like knowing your value, like you're actually providing value, and the conversation doesn't have to be so emotional. It can be like, this is the value we're providing. This is what the dollar amount is for that. And it can work or not work, and it's no harm, no foul.
And it's okay.
It's totally okay.
It's not a personal like attack or dig.
And like at first it's like this, like I had to like build myself up and okay, I'm going to ask for this number and it feels edgy. It took me a minute, and I wish I could go back in time and be like, oh, mijita, it's fine. Like, it's just a number. As long as you feel good about it and you know that you are providing that value, then feel good about saying
I know.
it.
I totally relate to that. Starting the company, it was like, I mean, you have to always weigh like, it's, the relationship and a couple of different variables too. But I remember there were times I was afraid to like ask someone to pay for something more or something like that, when in reality, like, I should have. I was afraid of like, oh no, they're not gonna like me.
Yeah.
But sometimes it makes people respect you, I think, at times too, for knowing, as you said, your value. And I think everyone's a little sensitive. Money's always like kind of a sensitive subject for people.
I think it is, and maybe more so. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like a lot of my women friends and stuff, I think we, egging each other on and motivating each other to have the conversation. But you're right. It's like, this is what it cost. This is what happened, and this is what it cost. Or we can get you that, but this is the cost associated with that. It doesn't have to be emotional. That's what I wish I'd known, right? It doesn't have to be so emotional, like all the energy that I could have saved.
Yeah. Not early in my career. Like this was like when I had freelance for a while, but I at one point made a decision where I was like, I'm going to say that my day rate is X, like no matter what. And I was a little afraid. I was like, oh no, are people gonna like not want to work with me? Are people gonna like whatever? And then what ended up happening is the jobs got bigger. And then I remember I had like 6 months later of doing that, someone called me and they were like, well, I was gonna call you, but I heard that your rate's this. And I was like, but they're like, but you're worth that now. And I was like, well, thank you. So it kind of like, it also kind of like pushes you there too.
I love that.
Yeah.
Totally. Somebody told me you're reassuringly expensive. Be reassuringly expensive. And I didn't know what it meant at the time, but then over time I did, because, you know, I get 3 bids for something, and maybe the lowest price on the table, maybe they were the best team, but their number was so much lower than the other 2 that I thought they must not know something here. Something's got to be fishy. Or maybe they're going to cut corners, or maybe they're, you know.
Absolutely.
And maybe they weren't. Maybe they were put blood, sweat, and tears into it and were, you know, absolutely competent and would have knocked it out of the park. You know, maybe they just needed to have this conversation first, you know?
100%.
Yeah.
I remember seeing, we had some bids and some projects earlier in our career where, and I saw that we're like, I was like, oh, cool, we're like the lowest one. Like, this is great. And then we would still lose. I was like, I can't believe the client went with that other option that was like 50 grand more or something. But then it was like, I also now I've learned that like, you do kind of have an eye for like, okay, that is a little low, or is it worth, what's the value there? You know, like from someone that's willing to go low versus like the quality or what they're doing.
Yeah, the quality. I'll connect it to the quality. Or like maybe think you're a little green. You don't realize that you need to put a buffer in there for contingencies or something, right? And that's what I also realized too, is like give them the number where you don't need to go back to them over and over again with problems. You're here to solve problems. So if you can get as close to what that number should be that everybody can agree on, and then you also have room to solve problems. I mean, that's a huge value right there. I mean, there's also value in just like a guarantee. There's a value in like, I don't have to worry with you. That one is a little question mark. I would pay whatever more to just know that I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing you have to go back to is like so important. Where you can say, like, hey, I'll solve this on my end without having to go back to someone and be like, oh, please, can I have $1,000 more, some like small amount,
Yes,
you know?
the worst. I get that because, you know, we're in the same page. Like,
Yeah.
I know what it's like. I'm just trying to get through my
I was
day.
like, oh, we're just going to swallow it. Just like,
exactly. I don't want to add one more like meeting to someone's day, you know, and one more problem that I need to like, you know, raise for somebody. I'm literally here to solve problems. So yeah, totally with you on that. And then you're like, oh, I'll eat it. That's how you learn.
Yeah. When we did start doing that, I'm sure it happened with you too. You probably saw returns on it in terms of like not only the value of your company and people seeing you a certain way, but it probably gave you more capital to be able to do more better.
Exactly. Absolutely. There was no downside whatsoever. It's just you wish I had done it sooner. You know?
Yeah.
I just wish I had the confidence. That's what I'm saying. Like, know your value. Like, you're actually solving pretty significant problems for big brands, you know? And there's definitely a value to just getting the problem solved that I was leaving on the table.
Yeah.
That's not to say we're like the most expensive on the block by any means.
Yeah. But as you said, you're solving a problem, and that people will pay you to solve a problem. And if you do it well, it's worth the money that they're paying.
Exactly.
You know, which I think is great because I've talked to even a couple of friends that have smaller production companies, and I've had to tell them like, hey, like, if you're competing against someone and you are able to do that level of work, like you should bump it a little bit, because other people, you're doing the same level of work as they are. So like, why don't you show the people that are hiring you that is what you are doing and can do? Because if not, they're going to look at you as like, this is some smaller company that isn't used to doing this level of work. You know, it's the optics thing.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, they're lucky to have you. And it's like so beautiful that you're even taking the time to do a podcast like this, to like share this with people, because just the thought of going back in time and whispering in your own ear, it's like, yeah, whisper, like we should all be learning from each other. And like, and I'm just right here in my career. So I want to hear from everybody who's been ahead of me. I don't want to learn the hard way. Yeah. I love learning, but not the hard way.
I learn from other people's mistakes or experiences.
And then you know yourself. You're like, I don't quit.
Yeah,
I'm not going to stop until like
exactly
it's correct. Honestly, I wish I could interview you. I want to ask you. Like, I'm dying here. I'm just getting asked all these questions. I want to pick your brain.
People could hear it from me later. I like being able to hear other people's stories. I said this when we sat down, but I think your story is so great, especially how you've continued to, I don't want to say reinvent yourself, expand what you're able to do is, I think, so fascinating. Especially now hearing that you're doing not only production, but you went from image retouching to all the way to now doing basically A to Z on all stages of photo is in production, which is awesome.
Yeah. I don't think if I would thought about it, I would have done it. That's the truth. It's just been that part of but if I had it all in my hands, how much easier would this be?
Would it be? Yeah.
The whole process, there's just that process piece of streamlining things. And then it actually is helpful to the clients too. I mean, this is less, I call it handing off the baby moments. You go from the big idea to, the agency to the production, now you got to go to post, now you got to go. There's all these little handing off of the baby moments when you got to be super organized in those moments because the next team needs all the intake materials.
All of it, yeah. And you've been there as a when you were only doing, the post side of things, when someone just gives you here you go, solve my problems, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, because they use the hottest, coolest photographer in the world. Well, guess what? Now he's in Brazil, and then he's going to be in Tokyo. You can't get a hold of him.
And you have to deal with it.
And and he didn't have his regular Digitech, so now he had to use some other person, and that's the folder. It's good luck. The plate's in there, and it's just hours and hours of sorting and sifting. The deadline doesn't stop. The deadline's what the deadline is, and the closer you get to print or doing it a publish date, and the closer the more compressed the post time gets. So you're just the one sitting there holding it all. So much of that is what made me be I just want to get I just want to keep going. I call it upstream, get further upstream with the creative production, because then you can unleash all these efficiencies and you can parallel path stuff. I got to use the FPOs and already be working on the designed assets. I could already be doing so much instead of taking 3 months. I can cut it down to 6 weeks. You get your assets, print, shot, and designed and copywritten and everything. So I just cut 6 weeks off of your time.
And you're saving people, not for saving them time. You're saving them, time is the most hard thing to get back, So you're saving time and money. You're providing value, but also trust. They can trust you. And when they trust you, as you said earlier, with that one thing, then it's just what else can they trust you with?
Yeah, and then my life becomes so much easier.
Yeah,
because I can tell my team what to do. You just got to take what you get from the client, and really not let yourself get into a headspace of complaining about clients. And I think that's been something that I've been really cognizant of. And that was a piece of advice my dad gave me, actually. He said, if I was whining one day, and he said, well, if they didn't have problems, they wouldn't need you. And if they weren't complaining about something, that means they're committed to you. They want to solve it with you. That reframe was it's so basic, but it's so true, we're here to solve. If they had everything so dialed in, they wouldn't need you, and everybody's doing the best that they can with what they have. And they've got now limited budgets, and their teams are getting cut, and all sorts of stuff is happening behind the scenes. So just remembering that everybody's doing the best they can. No one went out to sabotage you and give you this sloppy files or something,
I love that perspective.
Because it's hard. You can easily get into a place where you're rah, rah, rah.
Oh, for sure. I love that, though. It's it's just another way of using other people's problems or complaints to fuel your own solutions and resolutions to things that you could offer or help solve.
And package it and say, if you gave this to us, you wouldn't have any of those problems.
So I noticed this problem that you had last time with your production team. We could do that for you, but not have the problems.
Exactly. You're just sitting there jotting them down, which we do a lot of retrospectives and how could we do it better next time?
Well, thank you so much for coming by today. This was so great to hear your story and just hear about everything you're up to, and excited for what's next for you and View and everything coming down in the future.
Well, thank you. Just very honored and very sweet that you thought of me,
of course,
thought of us. I felt the vibe right away when I met you the first time too. So I feel we're kindred spirits in that sense.
Absolutely.
But what I really appreciate is that you're doing this in general, taking this time to. It's a lot of effort to do a podcast or something out there. And so can't wait to go listen to all your episodes.
Yeah, well, thank
'cause
you.
I want to
Yeah, I
pick everybody's brains now.
And I know that we talked about this when we sat down, but like I wanted to be able to have just like fun conversations with people that we work with and know and admire. And just I felt like this was such a great way to do that. And for other people, hopefully, as you just said, like maybe you'll see someone else on this podcast that you want to talk to or get to know. And maybe, you know, it's just a connection tool for you too.
I love it.
So-
I love anything that builds community. I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being on this. Yeah.